Hey guys, welcome to the Redmen TV. On today's Journo Insight, we had the Echo's Ian Doyle filling in for Paul Gorst of the Liverpool Echo, who's on his holidays. In the absence of plenty of news, obviously there's not tons going on. We asked our Discord users some questions about Liverpool's transfer business this summer to put to Ian, and here's just some of those. We've got a couple of Discord questions, Ian, so we do ask our subscribers to ask questions to Paul, or in this case yourself. The latest one comes from Kyle, and this is on the back of a tweet he saw from CM Journal. Says, Liverpool have identified midfielder João Neves as a priority target this summer. I saw things this morning, what Diogo Jota having a chat about how good this guy is. So the question is, does Ian think there's anything in this one?
What I would say is I don't think any midfielder is a priority for Liverpool at the moment. I think they got loads of them. And we have to wait and see what's going to happen with Slot and what his formation. But he likes to play 4-2-3-1, which is very significantly different to playing 4-3-3, because you have the two of them there, which sounds obvious because it is. But what that then means is that Liverpool have an awful lot of players who can play as those two. Because as well as Endo and McAllister who played as the number 6, they can have people alongside them. Then that opens it up for Curtis Jones has played there, Szoboszlai has played there, Trent. If you're going to move him into midfield, don't necessarily have to have him as a dedicated number 6. You can have him alongside someone else, like he'll be playing probably with England at the weekend. Yeah. And I think somebody else I've forgotten. Oh, Bajcetic. There you go. So Bajcetic, and that again, that helps him because he's somebody who you don't want to put a lot of responsibility on because he's still not even 20 yet. And to play alongside somebody else would be a big bonus for him. So I don't necessarily think that's a priority because they've got a lot of options that if they play that, and also they're looking at a centre back. They're looking for a wide player if Diaz, and we know that Salah is going to go at some point, and it's a lot cheaper to get his replacement in before he actually leaves. Yeah. And also, say Salah plays for another year for Liverpool, which we're all expecting, and he's expecting as well, that he gets the experience of training alongside him for a year, so he knows exactly, how great would that be? You've got a younger player, 21, 22, every single day he's there alongside Salah. So
we mentioned this with Diaz, didn't we? Diaz was effectively replacing Sadio Mane, but he had him a little bit before he replaced him. That continuity always helps rather than, you are right. I suppose going back to the question on João Neves, like I say, you're right, it would be a lot of money for Liverpool to be spending on a position which might not be deemed as a priority. I think a lot of this will depend, and we don't know this until Arne Slot training sessions or he speaks to the media, what he plans to do. But if he is going to play two in midfield, like Trent's there,
or is he?
I mean, as it stands, Trent's there. He's very much got a contract that he's sorting out as well. But as it stands, Trent's there, and given the emergence of Bradley and Gomez, like we spoke about before, surely that would be rather than spend £100 million on a young lad, you should come put him there. That would make sense to me.
I mean, I know a lot of Liverpool fans have no time for England or international football, well, England in particular, but it will be interesting if Trent plays really well in that position for England in the Euros. We're pretty sure he's going to start against Serbia on Sunday. If he has a good game, there's no reason to then not play him in the rest of the games. And I think he's played something like 7 or 8 games starting in central midfield for England. He's played 1 for Liverpool, and that was in a Chelsea in 2018 when it was in between 2 legs against Roma in the semi-finals. It wasn't technically a game where they were playing full strength anyway. I think he came on. We've seen him obviously going into the position when he's been in the inverted right back over the last 15 months. I think he came on against West Ham in the League Cup second half and he ended up setting up 2 goals from there. So we've seen little glimpses of it, but it's very different to actually then go and do it full time. And especially, but if you've got somebody else alongside you. So yeah, again, it's down to what the manager says, which is why, a lot of people are having a go, just talk personally now, having a look at the X saying, you don't know what's going on, this, that and the other. Well, have a look around. Everybody else is in exactly the same boat because we are waiting to see what the new manager says because he doesn't know what he's deciding yet because he hasn't had a chance to have properly assessed the squad.
I was going to say, I spoke to this about Paul actually last week, but I'll put it to you as well, is that you can usually follow the breadcrumbs of what a Liverpool signing is because you know the system, it's 4-3-3, you know who maybe they want to upgrade or who maybe contract situations or someone who's angling for a move. So like when reports come out and you guys have got to do your due diligence and ask the questions that you need to ask, you can usually do a little bit of self-filtering yourselves. There's no way Liverpool are going to sign him because it's a right winger. Well, they've got Mo Salah. It's not going to happen this season because you're so unsure. Have you found that a bit more in your job? Like you've got to ask a little bit more questions because anything's on the table really. There's nothing you would say is completely out of question because And I even include transfer fees because 12 months ago they bid a British record fee for a midfielder, so they're clearly willing to do that as well. So in terms of doing your job, I'm guessing you've got to take everything a little bit more seriously than maybe you had to, where you could do, like say, a little bit of that self-filter.
Yeah, because you don't want to have that one that gets through and it ends up being true.
Yeah.
You're right. There has been in the past a lot of self-filter, and also because you've spoken to the manager for the best part, for a full 6 months building up to the transfer window, so you know exactly what he's thinking. He might not tell you the names, but you know exactly what positions that he wants. And of course, what will happen during the course of the transfer window always happens is that some players, like say Joe Gomez, might say, really enjoyed it here. Time for me to go and do something else. Then,
happened last year, didn't it, with two midfielders? Yeah.
Well, exactly. Yeah. Exactly. That's how they ended up bidding the money for, because Saudi Arabia came in and gave 40 million for Fabinho, 12 million for Henderson, and then they conjured up a little bit more money and said, well, let's put it all on Caicedo. Didn't happen. They ended up buying Endo and Gravenberch instead. And I know that some people will go, well, there you go, there's £60 million straight off. It doesn't always work like that. Liverpool will have a fair amount of money to spend in the transfer window coming up, but we know that they're also looking at tying up players on, like Trent, like Van Dijk, possibly Salah on contracts. They're not going to be cheap. It isn't just about the transfer fee; it's about the whole thing, which is why Thiago, for example, leaving frees up a bit of a wage.
Yeah.
Last year when Keita, Oxlade-Chamberlain, Firmino, Milner, that's why they were able to spend as much as they did in the summer. So again, it's you are right that this filter that we've had, it's kind of gone now. The only good thing is that Michael Edwards is there, and we know that he tends not to advocate doing something absolutely ridiculous.
Absolutely. Like you mentioned before about Trent playing well in midfield. There's a couple of extra zeros on that contract if he does.
Exactly.
The right back wage probably isn't as much as the centre midfield wage. If you're looking at and being linked with the likes of Real Madrid and stuff as well. Fill your boots, Trent. He looks like he's in for the have a little good Euros. You might be able to get a few more zeros on that contract. The last question we've got comes from Tony, who says, it looks like Bayern Munich are considering selling Matthijs de Ligt. Do you think Liverpool could be interested in him, given that they've been linked with him in the past? I'll put that one to you.
Well, is there a Liverpool player that Bayern Munich are apparently trying to sign who's a centre-back? Joe Gomez, so...
Swap
him. There you go. But you never. But the thing is, when was the last swap deal you ever saw? It just doesn't happen anymore.
Agents don't get the cut. That's what that's for. Yeah. I know Juventus are currently talking about swaps, aren't they, with Douglas Luiz and stuff. But the interesting thing with De Ligt is he's 24.
I was surprised he was that young. We were talking about this in the office yesterday when we saw that. We were like, I was thinking, he's got to be like 27, 28, too old. It's like, he's 24. It's like, that's nothing for a centre-back. Nothing. Yeah,
he's played a lot of big games. He's been on some massive clubs. And again, if Liverpool are looking at that area, he fits a lot of, again, what we presume profile would be. He's played a lot of games. He's of an age what Liverpool were seemingly like. He looks like he's gettable, given the fact that Bayern Munich are willing, it seems, to sell him and are looking for replacements. The obvious question is, if they're thinking the lad you've got's an upgrade on the lad they're getting rid of, how good is he? And has he fallen away? Because when he was around, that time when he first signed for Juventus and on the back of Ajax, he was seen as probably the hot property in terms of centre-backs in Europe. That seems to have stumbled away a little bit now. It's whether Liverpool could maybe see him as an asset that they could, similar to Ryan Gravenberch, an exact one where it didn't quite work there, but we think we can, I don't know if restore is the right way, but get him back on track kind of thing. Do you see a world where this could be a possibility?
Well, he was at Juventus, wasn't he, before that?
Ajax, Juventus, now Bayern.
Yeah, so he's played for 3 massive clubs. I mean, Juventus, did it work out for him there or not?
They were just skint, I think.
Right, yeah. Again, this might just be a story that's come out of Bayern and they don't really know what's going on because, slightly different with Bayern is a lot of the time it's not the manager or the head coach, who makes the decisions in terms of the players, which of course is then interesting that the stories come out the company wants Gomez. Maybe the recruitment team at Bayern Munich have just gone, no, well, we don't want him. So interesting to see how that one pans out. But yeah, I think if you are, in his favour is his age. Yeah. Obviously, he's about 3 years younger than Gomez. But yeah, I wouldn't see the sense of allowing one to go and then bringing in another one who's
less versatile. Is the point?
Yeah, less versatile. He would be younger, but less versatile. And is he going to be playing loads? You don't want to block. I mean, my worry at Liverpool for centre-backs is Canati. I know by all talk, they're talking Francis that he's going to be starting for the Euros ahead of Saliba, which I would have thought it might have been him and Saliba. I think Upamecano's not had the best of seasons. I don't think so. A bit surprised by that, but France are quite good. Didier Deschamps seems to know what he's doing. So he's not going to get a lecture off me. Kanate, he gets injured a lot, and I thought he was quite poor towards the end of last season. But I do think
he was dropped, wasn't he?
Well, this is the thing. I'd been advocating Quanta for a while, simply purely on form. But I think for Kanate, you got to. It's easy to forget he did get that hamstring injury at Sparta Prague, wasn't it? And he wasn't really the same after that. But that's not his first hamstring injury. That's not his first injury. He's had quite a few in the 3 years he's been at Liverpool. That'd be my concern with him. So if you are looking to bring, as Liverpool are, to bring in a centre back, it's going to have to be somebody who's ready to go bang and go straight into the first team. De Ligt would definitely be one of those players. I mean, they still like Colwill at Chelsea, but whether or not Chelsea will ever sell him to Liverpool, I'd very much doubt that, unless Colwill kicks up a bit of a fuss, but then, he doesn't seem the type to do that. So, yeah, it will be interesting to see Liverpool bring in. But in terms of this deal, if Gomez is, again, it seems a little bit from the Bayern Munich end, all of this kind of stuff. So I think they're trying to, they probably do want to get rid, and they're trying to, build up as much interest as possible. So that may be a long-term game for them.
What is interesting, actually, you're speaking about centre-backs and the makeup of Liverpool's centre-back department, really. They've got Van Dijk, who's finally gave his contract, but by all accounts, that is something that everyone would probably like to get longer. And then you've got Konate and Quanta battling out for that role next to him. If they are going to bring in, obviously Gomez as well, who's floating around as like the utility. Everyone keeps saying Liverpool are going to buy a centre-back or looking to buy a centre-back, but that's a quite difficult one to square off. If you're a De Ligt, you're thinking, well, I'm not going to play, or am I going to play? You've got to back yourself, I suppose. But I'm up against probably the best centre-back in Europe still in Van Dijk, if not the best, one of the best. Here's a guy who's just about to start for France in the Euros. They've got this young lad who's just come through. Who's, he was on the verge of a Euro squad himself after 12 months of previously playing on loan at Bristol Rovers. Like, getting someone in there, that to me feels like that's probably going to be a younger player who's more willing to, accept the fact that they're probably not going to play as much. For Liverpool to go and 24, 25, 26-year-old centre-half, they're going to have to either be a worldie who just leapfrogs all of those guys, or a younger player, or an older player who's happy. It's a difficult one to get my head around of what exactly they're looking for. I don't know if you've got any thoughts
I think with leading teams now, I think all of them, certainly the players who are there, know that every position has two players. So if there's two centre-backs, there's going to be four of them going for those places. And I think that's the same at City, same everywhere. Right? Yeah. Look straight across, and they're all of pretty decent standard. Yeah. So I don't think that's that much of a problem, because if you are a younger one coming in, Van Dijk's in his 30s and he's not going to be around forever. Konate gets injured quite a lot. I know the other option is Quanta, who personally I think if he stays with Liverpool centre-back for years and years and years, I genuinely think he's that good. Okay. But he's still a young player, and he is going to make mistakes, and he is going to have to go out of the team. So you're going to get your games. If you're coming on Matip at the start of the season, he ended up being first choice until he got injured. So there is that. I don't think that's much of a problem. And also, playing for Liverpool, it is. Well, we've mentioned before, we don't really know in sense of the way it's going to go, but that makes it exciting in a way. And I think there'll be quite a lot of players who want to jump on board and go, well, I saw what happened the season that's just finished. They're now back in the Champions League. There's a good energy there. They got a lot of good players. I think I can improve that squad, and I think that I'm going to get games, and I think there's a very good chance I could win something. Yeah. So I think players aren't going to be put off by that. Yeah,
it's interesting. We go back to the Gomez thing. Obviously, buying reports has been interesting in him. From purely, I'm a squad builder. I know you're right about the age thing, and that's just a consideration. Losing a guy who can do 3, maybe 4 out of push positions, and replacing him with a guy who can do 1. It feels like if Liverpool lost Joe Gomez, they almost have to sign 2 players to replace him. You need someone who can play at both full-back positions and maybe someone who can do centre-back as well. It almost feels like a net negative, really, selling 1 to buy 2. I can't get my head around that, squaring that off. If you're Michael Edwards, Richard Hughes, thinking, well, surely you're better just keeping Joe Gomez around and doing something like that. I don't know. Well, the way Liverpool obviously operates is that they get given a transfer budget each summer, and then anything that they generate from player sales then gets put on top of that. Yeah. So I'll ask you a question and say, taking Kelleher out of the thing, if there was 1 or 2 Liverpool players you believed were expendable from that squad, who would you say? Not saying sell them right now, but I'm saying if they were to be sold at the value of what you think that they are. Like, for example, you might say Diaz, 25 million, because you could then spend it on other things. But what would you say? I think Costas is the first one you would think, given how good Joe Gomez was at left back. It probably is then Diaz. at a push, because they're going to keep Darwin, aren't we? By all accounts, that's not something that's on the table. Because I do think Liverpool need to sign a forward as well, because I think there's more games coming and more important games. Like, they were able to rotate in the Europa League. Ben Doak was able to play. They're not going to start Ben Doak in the Champions League. I wouldn't presume.
I think that's something that I think a lot of people forgot about last season. That was kind of helped them in a way to being in the Europa League round the Champions League. That's why they were able to challenge for the title for as long as they did.
Yeah, because they were able to keep the squad fresh. That option isn't probably going to be there. An extended Champions League. Yeah, there aren't too many players who, listen, they're all valuable, but who you'd be okay leaving. Costas is probably the only one, I think, that and as I say, the goalkeeper. Yeah, there aren't. I don't know if you've got any that could spring to your mind.
Well, the thing is, everybody's coming up with the same names. That's quite interesting, because that shows you then that there's almost everybody else in the squad they believe are good enough to then take Liverpool forward, which is what they've shown last season. Like, no one said Endo, even though if he was to go and they replace him with another defensive midfielder, you go, well, that's
I think my thing on that is the money. Yeah, what would you might as well keep him.
Well, that's it. Yeah. And I think he kind of ultimately will end up being like the Milner role. He'll end up coming on in games to see them out. And he'll play a game every now and again. Think about Milner. I was looking at something the other week. Don't think he started in defensive midfield for like the last 2 years that he played there. So he's always coming on as sub or playing right back or doing something else or left back. So
Strong, got a new contract as well.
Well, that's it,
Get him back.
Yeah,
he can do a few jobs.